What's going on, everyone? So in today's video, we're going to talk about what the hell is going on right now with the market. We are very overextended to the downside. We're going to talk about the SPY, the NASDAQ, the IWM, and the crypto markets. So without further ado, let's get started with the video. All right, number one, the SPY opened and closed outside of the lower Bollinger Band. All right, so right here is the opening price, and then right here is going to be the price of the lower Bollinger Band. Okay, so you can see that we opened at 379.85 and the lower Bollinger Band is 379.86. So we opened below the Bollinger Band and we closed below the Bollinger Band. So this is extreme overextension to the downside. Not only are we overextended on the SPY, we're also overextended to the downside on Apple, and we're also overextended to the downside on Microsoft. All three of these are opening and closing outside of the lower Bollinger Band. So historically, that is a good sign of a bullish reversal coming soon. So one of the simplest things that I want to show you guys is back here during the COVID crash. Now, historically, when we open and close outside of the lower Bollinger Band, like we are currently, right? The next day has a very, very high likelihood that we bounce, okay? But in the odd cases where we do not bounce, so today's Monday, right? Historically, about 85% of the time, ooh, wow, that 8 is doing bad. There we go. 85% of the time, Tuesday, we end up bouncing, right? Now, for the odd times where we don't bounce on Tuesday, here's basically what I want to show you guys. So, this is our Monday, right? We opened and closed outside of the lower Bollinger Band here during February 27th, right? The initial huge drop. Tuesday, like our equivalent of Tuesday, right? So the next day we ended up opening even lower, and then we began to turn green intraday. So tomorrow there is a slight chance where we open up even lower than we are today. But then every single time in history, including in the COVID crash, when we are this overextended to the downside, we reclaim Monday's price and make a higher high by Wednesday. So it's a very, very high likelihood chance that by Wednesday we should see the SPY price be above 382 at least. And the COVID crash is one example. There have been multiple examples of when we were trading outside of the lower Bollinger Band, this overextended to the downside on the SPY and the Apple. Multiple other different indicators that I can show you guys as well. It would take a longer time, but this is one of the most recent and one of the most dramatic falls. So I think this would be like a good explanation. So basically, very, very simply, Monday, which is today, we had a very, very red day, right? We opened and closed outside of the lower Bollinger Band. Tomorrow, if we open red, I'm going to scale into calls and we're going to play a bounce, right? But 85% of the time, we don't fall lower. On Tuesday, we end up just opening green and bouncing. So that's basically it. That's my plan for tomorrow. Intraday, we bought into BITO, we bought into Apple, we bought into SPY calls. And then we bought the dip at 376 when it initially fell, and then we rode the calls back up to 380, 381.50. And those worked out really, really well. The BITO calls were up 27%, Apple was up 20%. Those SPY calls that we bought on the dip were up over 30%. And then, yeah, essentially, so now what I'm doing is I'm holding on to runners. I'm planning on buying more calls tomorrow. But overall, it is a very, 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 very high likelihood that 380, we should almost, like, it would literally be the first time in history that by Wednesday, if we do not break above 380. So the odds are in our favor. History is in our favor. This could be the one time where we don't, right? There's always that possibility. Just because history has shown us time and time again that something is the case doesn't automatically mean that it's going to happen. It's just a good likelihood that it will. All right. But The odds are basically, historically, the odds are 100% that by Wednesday, we should have 380 again on the SPY. So, yeah, there's that. We see SPY, we see Apple, we see Microsoft, multiple trillion-dollar companies really overextended to the downside, including Facebook. Facebook is also very overextended to the downside. The NASDAQ is also pretty overextended. Not as much, but clearly very, very overextended to the downside as well. The IWM took a hit, mostly because of the financial sector, the XLF. So a lot of these stocks are taking heavy, heavy hits. And when the markets have fallen this much, smart money is not looking to short this extreme weakness. Smart money was looking to load up into shorts up here when the SPY was basically trading up at 416, 417 when we initially bought the shorts. So essentially, yeah, there's that for the stock market. Things are very overextended to the downside. I'm going to be buying the dips tomorrow, unless we already gap up. So if we look at where we closed, we can see that a 2% move intraday would bring us to 382.50. 2% move is pretty doable, seeing as how we fell, over 4%, almost 5% on both the IWM and the NASDAQ, but we closed negative 3.8% on the SPY. So things are very, very bad today, but having a nice green day afterward when things are very overextended to the downside is normal. It would make sense for us to have some short covering, especially since in 4 trading days we basically fell approximately 10%. So it would make sense to have some short covering. And if we fall again tomorrow, honestly, the best bullish case scenario would be if we fall down and gap down to like 370 for some reason. If we fall to 370 and break 370 intraday tomorrow to like 368, I'm going to be buying into calls. And then that is going to set up for a massive move to the upside to at least 380 by Wednesday. So that is basically what I'm expecting to happen. There's that for the stock market. Let's take a look at the crypto markets as well to get a better view of everything combined. Bitcoin daily chart, super, super overextended to the downside. So you can clearly see there is a lot of potential, obviously, for a bounce. So we fell down to this very, very important level of support, which was at 23.6, right? So now it's basically just like, are we going to hold this level? Or are we going to fall down to 20, which is a very major psychological level, around 21 to 22? Will we breach 20 and then potentially even come back down to this important trend line down here? But you can see Bitcoin is extremely overextended to the downside. You can see Ethereum is also extremely overextended to the downside. But when we are, so historically, when we have been this overextended to the downside in terms of the Bollinger Bands on Bitcoin as well, they have set up for good bounces. So that is why I think that we should have a bounce heading into at least Wednesday. And if we don't have a bounce heading into Wednesday, specifically for the stock market, that would be the first time in history that we do not at least retest 380, which would be pretty crazy. And that would I'd be pretty shocked. But it's good, and then at the end of the day, that's why it's very, very important to manage your risk. Not marry any single position, not automatically marry a bias. It's always good to have an open mind, and yeah, it's never good to full port into anything ever. So yeah, there's my analysis for the entire market. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.